Good evening, folks. My name is Bob Gamble, and Father Mike asked me to share some thoughts, reflection on the Lenten theme that he's been sharing with us the last few weeks of happiness and joy, and our guidebook, if you will, for Lent, of resisting happiness. So I thought long and hard, and Father Mike is a very persuasive gentleman. I mean that in the nicest way. And I'm glad that he asked me. At first I was reluctant, but I'm glad that he asked me and that I finally decided to do it. So thinking back, I decided to talk about a period in my life, I will say our lives, my wife Donna's and mine, where we experienced resistance. In the book, Resisting Happiness, the author describes, different aspects of our lives and our experiences that can put up a resistance to the true happiness that God wants us to experience. And so I thought back to the time period of 1992-93. We were living at Bolling Air Force Base here in D.C., and in January, our second son was born. And I was in the second year of a 2-year residency training program up at Bethesda. So life was pretty good. Things were going well. I was doing well in the residency. And in the second year of the residency, in the fall, my mom passed away in September. And that was, really tough on me. My dad had already passed away when I was a sophomore in dental school back in '84. So, losing the second parent was hard. And then piled on top of the usual stresses of trying to perform at a high level in a healthcare, residency program, that didn't really help matters. But, you find a way to move forward, and, there were tears and there was prayer and there was, asking God for the strength to go forward and continue in the residency program. Then in the spring of '93, coming towards the end of the residency, I had a medical issue kind of pop up, almost literally. I had a hernia that I'd been half nursing, half ignoring for more than a year so I could finish my residency. It finally started giving me symptoms to where I went and got it evaluated, and the surgeon gave me that look that kind of said, "Doofus, you're a doctor. Don't you know better?" So it was like, no, we're not doing this in the future. You need to get this surgery scheduled quite quickly. So I ended up missing, already had missed time, to go home for my mom's funeral, etc. And so I missed a few days for surgery in the spring. And when I came back, within a couple days of returning to the residency, I was called in for a meeting and found that I was now on academic probation. So that was a big blow to me. And my first reaction was the obvious, to feel put upon, and why me, and why are they picking on me? Don't they know I've gone through this stuff with my family and my mom, and I'm just coming off surgery. Why don't they leave me alone? And with all that coming to a head, this really had more than just the immediacy of my personal feelings of possible inadequacy or lack of succeeding at what I'm trying to accomplish. This potentially had far-reaching impact on my career. So we had orders to go to Guam in the summer, and I was supposed to go to Guam as a more highly trained healthcare provider. So if I didn't finish this residency, would I have to go somewhere else? Would I have to leave the Air Force early? So all those type of things are running through your head. So, and again, there was plenty of prayer. There were tears shed. There was awesome love and support from my wife, Donna. There were sage words of advice from my older brother, who was at the time a Navy Reserve officer, but he had just come off of his active duty time in the Navy, and he, shared some wisdom with me about being an officer in the military and things you might come up against. But now tying it back to the resisting happiness, there's, the overriding theme of what we find. I'm in a small group, we're discussing this, and one of the overriding themes is that God wants us to be the best version of ourselves. And there's a prayer that we say at the closing of our small group discussion, the dynamic Catholic prayer, And part of it it says, open my eyes to the parts of my life that I need to change in order to complete the mission. And later it asks for courage when I'm scared, asks for clarity in times of decision. It asks for hope when I'm in times of despair. And obviously this was a long time ago, but that prayer would have been perfect. I wish I knew that prayer at that time. But the spirit of that prayer really was a lot of what I was praying about when I was going through this time. So I had to really take a look in the mirror. And when I did, it brings about humility, and you have to be honest with yourself. And yes, I had fallen behind in my clinical requirements and in my research project. Maybe part of the explanation was what I was going through, but explanation doesn't equate to excuse, and there's no excuses. I had to decide, can I go forward or can I not go forward? And so I just really had to, kind of pull up that internal wherewithal. And I think that the fact that, my Catholic upbringing and what my parents instilled in me was pretty much along the lines of the theme of this book that we're looking at now. So that was really helpful to me that, if God wants me to be the best me that I can be, my mission from that prayer was to become the best healthcare provider I could be. And to do that, part of that was finishing this program, no matter what it took. And so I, powered through, got it done, and I felt good that at the end, some of my mentors there were complimenting me and said, boy, you had such a positive attitude throughout this. We thought you were just going to be possibly just an angry dude this whole time. And I give credit to the fact that in my thought and meditation and prayer and the support from my family and from God, it's like, don't be bitter. This is another opportunity to be your best self. And so I took that approach and moved forward. And it really very much informed the rest of my, Air Force dental career. And even, now, it's easy to be, if you don't finish a training program like that, you can't go get your board certification and you can't get other jobs in the Air Force. And I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to later become an educator in the Air Force. And I work as an educator now at Howard University College of Dentistry. And I consider it a gift. Some people say I wouldn't do anything differently. If I could change it, I wouldn't change a thing. That's not true. I would have much rather have had a smooth sailing my second year of residency. But I consider it a gift that I had to go through what I went through. And my gift to the people that I mentor now is I don't hesitate to share stuff like that with them if they're going through something. Because it's easy for us to look at someone who's in a position of authority or responsibility or a mentor and think that they just always had a smooth ride and everything was great. And for me to be able to share with them that no, it's not always that way. And when you're up against something, you've got to find out how to move through it. And so I am thankful for that experience. It was a difficult year, but it's a year that we got through. And I am thankful for the background that my Catholic upbringing and what my parents told me about how to approach life. It really came in handy. And I found it very gratifying that now it's kind of come full circle and I'm seeing it again 20 years later in this book, this person I knew nothing about, this author. So again, I thank Father Mike for asking me to take this opportunity, and I appreciate your attention to whatever I share, and I hope that some of it can in some way touch somebody who might be going through a difficulty and trying to figure out how do I get through. Realize that God wants us to be the best as we can be. Or I hope Father Mike, I don't know where you are, but I'm going to try to paraphrase a little bit from the Catechism. We were created by God, for God, and we're created to love and to be loved. And if you keep that in mind, you won't get as down about things, or at least you'll see there's hope, there's light ahead as you're moving through a difficult time. And speaking of time, I guess my time is up.